Scorpio. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for May of 2022. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
I'm Julia Mijas in Pioneer, California.
Scorpio, this month's Jupiter influence may bring up a restlessness for you, which could eventually allow you to change your job for the better. Wouldn't that be nice? A mission orders career reading can help you find the right ways to create opportunities and the optimal time to grab them. You'll find a link for that very helpful reading, along with really specific personal for you timing in it in the YouTube description below. Well, this month, Jupiter changes signs, moves into Aries. It's been in Pisces for much of the last year. It's going to have another little stint in Pisces coming in a few months, but for now it's moving ahead into Aries. And this is cause for great excitement and surges of optimism and positivity. So here's where Jupiter is at the beginning of the month, but as the month goes on, right there, you see it pops into Aries, which corresponds with your 6th house, a house of health, work, service, and personal organization. Jupiter is going to be in this zone for you for much of the rest of the year. And then go on to traverse this zone further during 2023. Jupiter usually spends about a year in a sign or a house. And when Jupiter is in your 6th house, you may feel that you're really ready to grow and expand at your job. Now, if your assessment of your job environment is that there isn't room for you to expand, there's no upside potential for you there, you might feel a restlessness that drives you to look elsewhere. Or it might be that you bring all of this enthusiasm, this Jupiterian excitement and ebullience to your job, and you get noticed and promoted without you even having to ask. But suffice it to say that Jupiter in the 6th house can do wonderful things for your work life. It can also do great things for your health. And it can bring you the confidence and the excitement to make some really positive changes in your health routines that help you to recover from something if you've been struggling, or to solidify and shore up your health for the future. But let's talk about some other things too. On May 15th, Ceres, where is our friend Ceres, enters the sign of Cancer right up here in your 9th house. And Ceres is all about good stewardship, healthy habits, and money management. And when she enters Cancer, she gets, what shall I say, she gets into some emotional spaces about money. So you might have some feelings about money coming up. But in your case, because this is your 9th house, this could be a wonderful time of financial expansion for you, particularly around what you believe about your deserving, which underlies your capacity to earn. So this could be a time when you expand what you believe you deserve and what you believe your value is, thus leading to and generating greater earning power. It's going to be in this house for you for a couple of months. Another thing that can be discussed in an astrology reading if you want that. So Juno continues in Pisces. Here she is. She's going to be in Pisces for the rest of this month and for much of the year to come. She's going to go retrograde at some point, and I'll say more about that when it happens. But for now, suffice it to say that she speaks to relationship themes. And in the 5th house, it's a really good time for you to be having more fun with your partner, playing together more and enjoying life more. That would be a really good thing to do while Juno is in this house. So Julia, you've got some news about Mercury, Venus, and Mars, I believe.
Oh, sure. There's a lot going on, especially with Mercury this month, Scorpio, because Mercury is going to be going retrograde. So Mercury is the planet of communication and it rules our mind. And wherever we have Mercury in our chart is usually where we tend to be quite mentally preoccupied. Now, Mercury starts the month in your eighth house. This is the house of other people's money. So the money you share with your partner or your family, or even institutions like the stock market or banks, like through loans and mortgages. So the eighth house has quite a strong financial component to it, but it's also a house of research and investigation as well, too. You know, the eighth house is about sort of digging deep into a mystery to kind of pull up the truth from underneath the surface. So with Mercury in the eighth house, you know, your mind could be very probing this month. Maybe there's some matter you're trying to get to the bottom to. Maybe there's something you're researching in school or for your job or in your personal life. Or, you know, your mind could also be preoccupied. It's on money in general, especially things like, should I apply for a loan? Should I, should I set up a trust for my kid? All of these financial matters. Now, on May 10th, Mercury is going to go retrograde in the eighth house, and this cycle lasts for a few weeks. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it literally means that from our perspective on Earth, it's traveling backwards in the sky, and it tends to be a time of miscommunications and review of whatever Mercury is representing for you in your chart. So in the eighth house, where this is all taking place, you could be reviewing and rethinking even some of your financial strategies. Since the eighth house has a lot of investment and shared resources aspects to it, it could, maybe you're thinking about long-term investments or other types of ways that you can sort of strategize about your financial life. And Mercury retrograde can be a time of miscommunications. So it's also possible that you might not be seeing eye to eye with other people about finances, or maybe you say one thing and they took a totally different meaning from it as well. Now, on May 21st, we're going to have Lesser Epiphany Day, and that's when Mercury is exactly conjoined the sun. And it tends to bring a little bit of insight into and clarity into whatever that retrograde cycle was representing for you. So around May 21st, you might have a little sort of aha moment or a little bit more clarity, especially about financial matters or anything you might be researching or investigating in your life. So that's a pretty good time of the month to keep track of. And then Venus, the planet of
Hey,
art.
Julia,
Oh, yes.
do you think that the Scorpios of the world should sign any loan papers or like apply for a loan while Mercury is retrograde, or wait till it's done?
I definitely think waiting till it's done is good in general, because since Mercury rules things like contracts, Mercury has anything to do with anything that's written or any type of contract and communication, especially in the eighth house. If there's anything financial, definitely that would make sense. And Mercury will go direct next month too. So that would be, June would be a better time, I'd say.
Yep.
Cool. And Venus, the planet of art, beauty, and relationships, the very beginning of the month, on the first day, she's still in your fifth house of fun, where she was probably bringing sort of a lot more pleasure and enjoyment into all of your diversions and hobbies. Now, on the second of the month, she's going to go into your sixth house, where she's going to spend most of the month. And the sixth house, it's a work house. It represents your job, and it can also represent your health. Now, Venus brings a little bit of harmony and pleasure wherever she goes. So in the sixth house, it could mean that you're getting along really well with the people you're working with. If you're single, you might get a crush on somebody that you met through work. And Venus in the sixth can be a nice time for health. The only exception is Venus is very indulgent. So if any of your health regimens involve like not eating sugar or not eating gluten, Venus in the sixth kind of wants to indulge. But other than that, it actually can be a pretty supportive transit for health too. And then on the 28th, Venus is going to spend the last few days in your seventh house, which is one of her favorite houses to be in. It's going to be a wonderful transit for all the Scorpios who are in a relationship, because it's kind of like when Venus is in the seventh, you fall in love with your partner all over again. And if you're single, then it's going to be a wonderful time at the very end of the month to get on dating, maybe go on a dating app, or perhaps reach out to other people or other sources for dates. And then finally, I do want to mention a few things about Mars. That's a planet of action and activity. And Mars spends most of the month in your fifth house. So up until the 24th. And the fifth house, again, it's the house of children. It's the house of fun and diversions. And it's also the house of gambling too. So this wouldn't be the best month for any gambling Scorpios out there, because Mars in the fifth might mean that your luck might not turn exactly how you want. Mars is especially very impulsive too, so there might be an urge to just kind of roll the dice with it. Mars in the fifth can also sometimes bring up some challenges with conflicts, especially surrounding children if you happen to have them, because Mars can be a little conflict prone. However, Mars in the fifth would be absolutely great, especially if you do anything kind of physical for fun, like if you play sports. This could be a great month to watch a sporting game or play in a sporting team, or even if your creative hobbies have a very physical aspect to them, like let's say you do a lot of performance or things of that nature. Then on May 24th, Mars is going to go into your sixth house of work, where he might be bringing some of his frustrations and conflicts along the way. In the sixth house, that might mean not seeing eye to eye with the people that you work with so easily. And since it rules health, it could be a time where any kind of chronic things that you deal with might have also a little bit of flare up as well.
Yeah, inflammation particularly. So I want to speak to a couple of moons that are happening and also a change of season. On the 15th, we have a lunar eclipse and full moon in Scorpio. And here it is. And a full moon in Scorpio is already pretty intense, and that moon falls in your first house. So you might feel it rather personally as a surge of emotion within yourself. And it might play out in your relationship as well, because full moons always feature an opposition between the sun and the moon. So they can be very relational and play out within relationship dynamics quite a bit. But this one is more intense than usual because it's also an eclipse. We know that it's an eclipse because the sun is conjunct one of the nodes. This is the north node in Taurus. And the moon is also conjunct a node here, south node in Scorpio. So when an eclipse happens, it shows us our shadow. It forces us to look at things about ourselves that we don't look at every day. And a lunar eclipse particularly makes us look at our shadow emotions, or it brings up emotions within us that force us to look at our shadows. So this is something to watch out for. This particular eclipse has lovely support. We're calling it Cradled by Spiritual Action. And I leave it to you to check the video about it in our May 2022 news playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, to discover exactly what that means and what that support looks like. But it does promise to tap off the emotional intensity of this eclipse with fewer, less attendant drama than it might. But suffice it to say, around the 15th, try to avoid arguments with your spouse. So the next thing I want to point to is a change of season happening here when the sun leaves Taurus and moves into Gemini. The season of Taurus, which does fill most of May, is a season of warmth and growth. It's a season of fertility. The earthy sign of Taurus is very grounded and practical. And then the shift happens into Gemini, which is much lighter. It's a season of air, and it is a 30-day period in which we tend to look for stimulation. We want to talk with people more. We want to pay more attention to our communications, and that's a good thing to do. It's also a really good season for learning and filling our mind with information. This brings the sun into your 8th house, where Mercury is, and brings these two together on Epiphany Day, which Julia talked about, Lesser Epiphany Day. And wherever the sun goes, you want to shine the spotlight of your high quality attention, because the sun's sunlight is a life-giving force. It helps things to grow. So, so when the sun moves into your eighth house, this being a house of the finances that you share with a spouse or a business partner, or the debts that you accrue, or the monies that you've lent to others. It's also a house of physical and emotional intimacy too. This is a really good season. The whole 30 days of the sign Gemini is a really good time to put some high quality attention and shine it into those rather mysterious, sometimes dark corners, and help things to thrive in those areas. The last moon that I want to tell you about is happening on the 30th, and it's a new moon in Gemini. And so when the sun arrives here, and Mercury has at this point already backed out of Gemini and into Taurus, the sun and the moon meet up here in this eighth house. New moons have a quality of rebirth. They're like a great time for planting new seeds. And so I think that there's really a lot of conversation in your mind this month about debt and about finances and how to arrange finances that you share with others, or ways that your finances overlap with other people's, such as a spouse or such as investments. I think this is really a good month to think about that deeply, but without taking too much hasty action. Then to really shine the light on it and see it more clearly. And then ultimately to plant new seeds. That might mean taking on some investments that you've researched very thoroughly, and then seeing those seeds sprouting in the future. All right, well, that's what we have for you today, Scorpio. You can always find your horoscope on our website, pandoraastrology.com, in the horoscopes tab. And if anything in this horoscope makes you curious about actually getting a full-length, real reading with an actual astrologer like us, that's an undertaking, but an important one to do. And you can find links for that in the YouTube description below. And you can also find us on the readings tab of our website. And if you're interested in a class, you'll find classes there as well. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.